everyone, and welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Or if you're watching us on Twitter, if you've got us on Twitch, or you've got us on Facebook, any way you shake it, you are here. And we are in week 14 of NFL football. That means week 14 of fantasy football action. Keith, it's almost playoff time. If you're in Scott Fishbowl, we're in round 3, as we were talking about before the show started here. But everyone else, every other league in the world, this is your last week to make that big push, guys, to get into your fantasy playoffs. Otherwise, you're playing for that consolation prize. Just don't get the toilet bowl. That's all.
Right.
One of the ways you can get the toilet bowl is by just making bad decisions. We're here to help you not make those bad decisions this week. We've got Tron Force on the chat here on YouTube. What is up, Phils? What's up, Tron Force? Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to our first question here. Tyler Sperry on YouTube dropped this here ahead of the show. He wants to know, Keith, is Jaden Reed droppable for DJ Moore or Adam Thielen in redraft rest of season?
Yeah, for DJ Moore, 1,000%. You saw Thomas Brown is now the interim coach in Chicago. He actually was a scout corner versus DJ Moore in Carolina. So it is no surprise, because you knew DJ's that dude, that once he took over the play calling 3 weeks ago, DJ Moore last week, a 55% first read target share. So for sure. But with Reed, like, I know it's frustrating. I wouldn't just drop him. Now, obviously, if somebody like DJ Moore's out there, go right ahead. But otherwise, like, let's just, pump the brakes. I know it was really disappointing last night. It was a great matchup. I know he's, disappointed overall, but this is that Green Bay offense. It's just week to week. It's hard to know who's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm saying I feel like he is droppable. If you can get DJ Moore, of course. Sure. If we're talking David Moore here, no, I'm not dropping him for David Moore, because you're still going to get those boom weeks out of Reed. The problem is they're becoming fewer and far between. His last 3 weeks, big zero burger last week, 20 points against Miami in week 13, but then he had 5 and 9 PPR points against Chicago and San Francisco. The schedule coming up, they've got Seattle, New Orleans, Minnesota for the fantasy playoffs. This is a pretty good schedule for a player like Jaden Reed.
The last 2 weeks were great. New Orleans, Minnesota both give up a ton of points to wide receivers.
And if you're missing Romeo, if they're going to miss Romeo Doubs, I suppose maybe we can see a little bit more volume head his way. Or is it going to be Christian Watson? I'm sorry, because we saw Christian Watson get the volume last night over Reed. Yeah. So that's where I would say, like, if you can hold on to Reed, it's worth the risk to you. Keep him. He could have some boom weeks. I particularly would target championship weekend against Minnesota. I think that's going to be a big week for him. That's a great matchup for Jaden Reed. But if you need to win right now, get DJ Moore if that's the guy we're talking about, not David Moore. But Adam Thielen, I'm also okay with dropping him for, because Adam Thielen's going to see consistent volume.
Completely agree. I actually looked it up with Bryce Young. 9 of his last 21 games, Adam Thielen has scored 20-plus points with Bryce Young as quarterback, which is kind of shocking. I remember, it's been forever since he had that run at the beginning of the year, but he had a bunch of games early. Actually had a few late, and then obviously this is his, first one this season. So last week.
It makes sense to me in that you've got a guy like Bryce Young. The organization really wants developed, right? Yep. He was a first overall pick. So you want him developed. Who better to help him develop than a veteran like Adam Thielen? Hyper target the guy, because Bryce doesn't have to be as accurate with a guy like Adam Thielen. And that's why I don't understand why they got rid of Deontay Johnson, because he's got that big reach for a guy like Bryce Young.
I think it's off the field stuff with Deontay. And we're figuring this out more and more, because what's going on in Baltimore, because otherwise it's like what your point. He's one of the best guys in the league at getting over, period. Across the board.
I mean, he's had drop issues in the past, but from a football standpoint, and he's just a solid veteran presence. So, that had to have been locker room stuff. We're going to move on to the next one, Keith. We've got Jason William over on YouTube, thinking Bucky plays right now, sounding like Bucky Irving is going to go. Breece Hall is out, though, for the Jets, which that really matters for them in the long run. They'd be smart to just hold Breece out the rest of the season and save him from Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. Who would you play at flex, though, in half PPR? Rico Dowdle, Tyrone Tracy, or Braylon Allen? Don't love the Jets matchup this week, or the Giants matchup this week. Braylon Allen, I don't know. With Breece Hall out, I'm leaning Braylon Allen, especially with how bad Aaron Rodgers has been. They're going to start to move away from the pass in that offense. Either way, it's between the two New York running backs. Rico Dattle's out for me.
Yeah, if it was full PPR, I probably would be telling you Rico Dottle is the answer because he has the safest floor with his passing game upside. Sure. I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat what he did last week from a run perspective because the Giants are just one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. I would lean Allen. I will say, though, if it's a situation where you need the home run play, New Orleans is so bad versus running backs. That Tyrone Tracy is so explosive. He could have 2-3 runs and it equate to 80 yards, saying a touchdown or two. The issue is without Andrew Thomas, Giants just don't have any time. We keep seeing it over and over again. And when you don't have time, it's hard to run the ball because teams are like, look, we can rush 4 and get after the quarterback and just stack the box. So that's why I would probably, lean on out. And we've seen him in games that, he's got the ball, I think more than 15 times, put up some pretty games. He's a pretty safe play. I think Tracy is the boom play.
Yeah. I'm with you. If you want big points, Tracy could get you there. So let's go on to the next one here. Tron Force picked up Braylon Allen when the news broke about Breece's knee last week. Running back room looks strong for the playoffs. He's got Barkley, Chase Brown, Monty, and Braylon. Yeah. Oh, that is very solid. Very, very solid. Love to see it here. Derek wants to know if he should drop Dalton Kincaid for Hunter Henry. He's starting Disley this week. Doesn't have a lot of faith in Disley here. Kincaid does have a terrible playoff schedule for tight ends. Disley has a much better schedule, but he's having a hard time trusting him. Henry has a tough schedule, but he has, as he's saying here, he's been the most consistent of these guys getting targets. Which way are you going here?
Yeah, Henry is the guy for me. Like I like Disley a lot, but I just think that we're seeing until J.K. Dobbins comes back, this Chargers offense is different. My Atlanta Falcons defense looked legit last week because they could not run the ball and they were one-dimensional. And it was my guy Ladd or bust. Like, that was it. And with Henry, he's already played because I know this from – I pick Henry, it seems like every weekend on DraftKings, that he's going to get 6 to 8 targets and he's probably going to catch 4 to 5 passes. And with May, they're actually scoring touchdowns and stuff, like and moving the ball consistently. So his ceiling goes up, but I love his floor. I still think Henry is a top 10 tight end rest of the way. I don't know if Disley is quite there. And Kincaid, like I dropped him weeks ago. I don't have any interest in him coming back. I don't care his matchup. Buffalo is just too tough to predict. They're a lot like Green Bay outside of like Shakir, who it's going to be in the passing game week to week.
Dawson Knox is still seeing the red zone targets.
Yeah.
So as much as I love Dalton Kincaid, and we talked about him all last season, all leading into last season before he was drafted, how talented he was, probably the best tight end in the draft. That might be true, but that's not this Buffalo offense, right? They want a big guy like Dawson Knox who can get in there and fight for a ball in the corner of the end zone. They don't need a guy like Kincaid, especially when they've got Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. And not say that he's not going to get usage in this thing. This may change down the line, but for right now, I would definitely drop Kincaid for Henry. The last 3 weeks, 9, 8, and 9 targets, 83% snap share, 88% snap share, 78% snap share. Drake May has this offense playing well, and his floor is roughly 10 points. So
he loves throwing to tight ends, both Henry and actually Austin Hooper. So, that's just like May knows that's their advantage as tight ends. That's who he's throwing to the most.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We've got them flowing in now in the chat, Keith. Aaron Hudson needs to know, so he needs to win to make the playoffs. So I'm there in about 5 leagues, I feel like, right now. This is a PPR league, Keith. Who are we starting here? Najee and Pollard at running back. He needs 2 wide receivers and a flex out of this group here I'm about to read off for you. Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is out. Doesn't sound like he's going to play this week. Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Braylon Allen. He's got Henry on bye and lost CMC like we all did. Pour one out for my boy here.
And Jordan Mason went down with him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had them both in my home league, and let's just say I'm not doing so well in that league right now. Okay, so for me, obviously Malik Neighbors is out. Dude's not playing, and even if he is, he's probably off for me because he is wide receiver 51 since week 5. Just absolutely atrocious quarterback play in New York. So
Evans is a must start, right? Like for me, that's
Evans,
the definite. Yep.
It's Evans and JSN are my 2 wide receivers. And then I'm probably going to say Cooper Kupp.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. I do like Tyreek Hill though a lot this week, particularly if Sauce is out. Sure. You look what Miami did last week. The Jets are still a good defense against the run overall, but the big thing is they play a lot of man. And if they're going to do that without Sauce, I know Tyreek's numbers this year are a little down versus man compared to last few years, but he's still a beast versus man defense. And I think that, I think Buffalo is a legit, really good defense. And that's going to be issues for, Kupp and Puka. They could go off for sure, but I don't know if they will. The way to beat Buffalo is to run on them. So it could be a big Kyron game. Sure. I like Tyreek Hill. Again, if Sauce is out, that's a slam dunk for me. If he's not, I'm with you. It's like Kupp, Hill, kind of flip a coin.
So, yeah, if Sauce is out, it's Tyreek Hill. I wouldn't start Puka in this matchup for the Rams, but I would start Cooper Kupp. I think even if they're run heavy, then fine. He's the guy who's going to end up getting the targets. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
It is hard to throw down the field on Buffalo, and Kupp definitely runs the much shorter routes.
Exactly. Toronto Dave in the chat giving us the party emoji. Good to see you, my friend. We've got Chris Robin over on YouTube. Dudes, Keith needs to chill. He's like James Brown, go rest, man. Well, we appreciate you being here. I know you're busy. Let's keep rolling into these questions here, Keith. Aaron Hudson's got another one for us. He's currently got the Chiefs defense. Would you drop them for the Falcons, Jags, Saints, Titans, or Jets defense this week and rest of season? I'm assuming.
I mean, if you're okay with streaming, which I always recommend, go ahead and stream. The Saints defense to me is just a juggernaut this week. Like, you could convince me on the Titans too, but we just saw the Titans get torched. Yeah. Again, the Giants without Andrew Thomas cannot protect the quarterback. Look at what Dallas's defense, like how much shambles it's been in. They faced the Giants on Thanksgiving, and, I mean, they were in that backfield every single play. And it's been that every week since Andrew Thomas has gone out for the Giants. Like, he was the only thing holding a bad offensive line together. I think the Saints are a monster play this week. My favorite one in DraftKings Cash Plays at 2,900 this week. And if you're okay with streaming, because obviously I don't think you'll be able to pick the Chiefs back up, I would definitely do that. And I like to stream defenses anyway. I think that it's actually smarter to just play bad quarterbacks than it is to pick a really good defense.
And the Saints matchup rest away, the Giants, then they've got Washington, Green Bay. Those aren't great matchups, but fantasy championships, if you can hold on to them, they've got Las Vegas at home. That's a good matchup. Especially in the fantasy championships. All right, we're going to move on here to MVM Mevale Madre on YouTube. A-Chain, Kyron Williams, Tracy Dowdle, Evans, London, JSN, and Jennings. Which 3 are you sitting in this group, Keith?
Definitely Tracy Dowdle are automatic sits. And then I hate doing it with Jennings because there's a world where Buffalo, gets up and San Francisco's forced to throw, and Jennings' target rate is outrageous, 11 targets, both of the last 2 games started by Purdy, not in a snowstorm. But I can't sit Evans, JSN, or London, who all are that dude and have good matchups. So I would sit Jennings, Tracy Dowdle.
Yeah, I'm with you. Tracy Dowdle, Jennings. Chicago's secondary is good. I know Debo hasn't played well. Debo, we've talked about it multiple times, being borderline droppable in most formats in redraft. But that doesn't really mean that I necessarily think Juwan Jennings is going to be electric. If anybody's going to pick up extra work, I think it's going to be Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, and I think Arendo is going to be that's going to be their goal, obviously, I think, in that game. Because they've got to run it, because San Francisco is down to just 3 starters from their Super Bowl defense last year. And that's why I think Chicago gets up. That's why I'm a little nervous about Jennings. But to your point, the Bears are arguably the best defense in the NFL versus wide receivers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not Garindo's matchup, they've got Chicago and the Rams, then Miami, Detroit to round out the season. I think he's going to be good this week. I think they're going to lean on him. They're not going to have to lean on him in these last 3 matchups. I don't know that they will. Well, we'll see. Either way, you had to go get him on waivers, and you probably blew all your fab on him.
I just missed it, man. And Scott Fishball, so mad. I had $38 left, spent it all. Somebody had $40 left, and they spent it all. So good for them in my division.
I got Chris Rodriguez on waivers, so I just got to pray that I'm there next week. MVM's got one more question here. Saints or Seahawks, D?
Again, for me, it's the Saints. Again, Giants they give up so many sacks without Andrew Thomas. And the Saints have actually had 8 sacks anyway their last 3 games. I think like floor is 3 to 4 sacks for the Saints. And then if they get a pick 6 or something, it could be a huge game.
Yeah, it's like the Texans defense. I mean, they're going to get a ton of sacks because they just get a ton of pressure.
Yep.
Vince Mapstone with a question here. So he was watching the Bengals-Steelers game last week with his 3-year-old, and he said he liked the black and yellow team. Should I trade him in for a different son? No, I'm fine with it, Vince. I have no issues there. It's funny. My son and I were playing catch in the backyard. He's 7, and we're starting to learn the route tree now.
Ooh.
So like I'm teaching him post routes and hook routes and stuff. And he's learning like comebacks and how to turn and just turn for the ball and stuff. It's really fun. And then we're doing tip drills. So I showed him the Hail Mary in Ann Arbor, CU. So I watched it live when I was a kid. And Cordell Stewart, he's probably my all-time favorite football player. Grew up going to games at CU, watching him play. That's why I'm a Steelers fan, because he went to Pittsburgh, got drafted by Pittsburgh, and then him and I think it was like 8 other CU guys ended up in Pittsburgh. So I can't help it. Vince, send your kid here to the U.S. Actually, tell you what, how about you pay for us to come out there and we'll take him. You don't want to come here, I don't think.
Vince, don't take this the wrong way because, again, I'm a Falcons fan, so this comes from a place of love. Your son may be getting out of, falling in love with a loser franchise because the Bengals, like my Falcons, are just losers. Like they lose. That's what they do. And maybe your son will not go through like what I did. My dad tried to warn me growing up, like, don't root for the Falcons. You're just going to get your heart broken.
Yeah.
All these years later, I just get my heart broken. So it might not be the worst decision in the world for your son, just to let you know.
I mean,
it's coming from a place of love.
The Steelers are consistently 500. That's all I'm going to say, Vince. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's get to this Aaron Hudson question, Keith. Tua or Baker this week? He's got Evans and Hill, so he can stack him with either. Tua's been hot. I'm probably stacking Tua in this matchup with Hill.
Sauce is out, by the way. I just looked it up. So
okay. And if Sauce is out, then definitely I'm going Tua Hill stack.
And I think you're going to see a lot of Tampa running. Like, I think Baker could have a good game, but more than likely you're going to see another big week for Bucky and potentially Rashad White, to where the Jets are good against the run. Like A-Chain, all of his damage has been in the pass game in the red zone as of late too. So like, I think Tua is a much safer play, like has a safer floor and potentially a higher ceiling too.
Don't get me wrong. I love Baker.
I do too.
I love Baker, but for me, it's Tua this week. I want to get back to this here. That question we got earlier, the more that we were kicking around DJ and David, like they said in Dumb and Dumber, we were way off Elijah Moore. That's who he was asking about, is Elijah Moore. Are you willing to drop him for Elijah Moore?
I would like to see what happens when Cedric Tillman comes back, because most of this has been without Tillman, who we saw was a target monster in the first few. Winston, if he has a game with Tillman back and continues to see the volume that he's seen, absolutely, I'd be willing. I just worry that, and then Tillman and Moore sees 4 targets, and that may be more what he sees rest of the season, because you got Judy, you got Njoku, and Tillman. Like the pecking order is probably going to move down in it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really need to see what happens. I know what did happen last week is he screwed me out of beating Doug Orth from CBS in Kings Classic. I lost by 2 points because of Elijah Moore. Angelo just wanted to let us know, Keith, that he's rolling with the Cards defense this week and next. That is a really good call. That
Cards defense is
much
so
better.
Good. Jonathan Gannon, apparently, no surprise, is a really good defensive coordinator and defensive mind.
Yeah, right. He's got this team playing a lot better. Derek wants to say thank you. No problem, man. We're here to give you insights. He subbed. We very much appreciate it. And it's my dude, Mr. Jamie Parag, tuning in. What is up, buddy? Frog saying it's Braylon Allen's season. It might be. I like the talent. Next season with the new quarterback, guys, Aaron Rodgers is done. Next year he plays for the Vikings. He completes the prophecy, and then we all move on. But yeah, I think it is Braylon Allen season. In Dynasty, I'd be snagging him. You're not going to get him for cheaper than you're going to get him right now.
Oh my God, the prophecy, you got me. I'm the big Harry Potter dude, so that made my
Me
day.
too. My kid just asked me, he's like, Dad, why do you know so much about Harry Potter? It's like, because I read all the books
like 50 times. So
I've never seen them. I've never seen the movies. I've only read.
They're good. They're not. They don't hold a candle to the book, but they're good.
So I know this isn't football related, but what ruined it for me was as a kid, I read Jurassic Park, and then now I'm going to date myself. And then the movie came out after I'd read the book already. And I went and I saw the movie, and spoiler alert, the first like 4 chapters of the book aren't in the movie, and they're pivotal to the story. They completely changed the way you look at that movie if they had put them in the book. Or they put them in the movie. So that just...
You know, they're doing a mini series though on Harry Potter. I believe it's like on HBO or one of these where they're going to have a whole season per book. So basically like 10 hours per book. That I'm very excited about, because then they can get into a lot of stuff that they left out. And I think it's going to be closer to the actual source material.
Yeah, hopefully. Really good example of that is Stephen King's The Stand, because that's like a 2,000-page book, and the only way they ever could do it was they finally did a mini series, but it was like a 6-parter because there's no way you could put it into a 2-hour movie. It's just not possible. Now let's get back. We'll get back to football here. Enough about books turning into crappy movies. RCA wants to know full PPR play 1 for this week. Jawan Johnson, Greg Calcaterra, or Will Dissly.
If and it looks like
Goddard's been ruled out already.
Oh, he's been ruled. So then for me, it is Calcaterra. Like I love him this week. He's one of my favorite DK values. If you're looking for somebody cheap, I think he's 3,300. He's a safe play. Like in a full PPR, I think he's caught at least 4 passes in every game that Goddard has not played this year.
Well, they're up against Carolina, and like every
dead last
other position, they're last place covering it. So, that's going to be my call as well there. MVM needs to know Saints or Seahawks D. Actually, you know what? We already answered that one, so we'll go ahead and clear that one here. But he does need to know Herbert, Levis, Wilson, or Winston this week. He's got to start one with Jaden Daniels on bye. Who are you fired up, Keith?
God, I don't want you to not invite me back, but I really like Will Levis this week. I think he's an extremely safe play. He has now scored 15 points or more in 4 straight games, so the floor is pretty good. Jacksonville is the worst defense in the NFL versus the pass across the board in every metric. And then if you look at DVOA, they're actually a top 12 run defense DVOA to where they're 31st versus the pass. I think Levis is probably the safest play, but I don't know if I could tell you to do that. So I would probably go with Jameis just because of the volume, because Jameis is going to sling it even in a tough matchup. But I do like Levis if you have the balls to do it a lot this week.
I would say if you're looking for a boom play, like you're already projected to lose, you need some extra points, go with Levis. They're up against Jacksonville. Their defense is bad. It's a potential boom play, so I think it's worth it to try. If you're looking for a safe floor, though, probably go
either Winston or Wilson, I think. Oh, so even because again, I'm just worried about this Chargers offense after last week without Dobbs. That makes me feel good because I got a lot of Chargers and a lot of teams. So
someone who was basically I grew up in the AFC West. They always play the Chiefs tough at Arrowhead.
The Chiefs defense is all of a sudden really struggling. To your point, so Yep.
Jamie chiming in here on the Harry Potter debate. The Harry Potter TV show is supposed to be based more off of the books. That's
pump it right into my veins.
Everything should be based off the books, man. Jamie also wants to know here, would we trade away Nick Chubb for Chuba Hubbard in Dynasty?
Yes, I would. I know that, Jonathan Brooks is obviously going to be, but I think Carolina is rightfully trying to build similar to Detroit and a lot of these other teams where they have a really good offensive line and it's pretty much locked up the next few years. They're going to have both of these guys. Like Hubbard's been paid the bag. I love Nick Chubb, Georgia guy. I think his best days are unfortunately behind him, to where I think Chuba Hubbard is actually may benefit from having somebody like Jonathan Brooks, where he's more in like that David Montgomery role and might get more like goal line work, etc.
I completely agree with you. 100%. Chuba's cemented a role, man. He's a good back. Jonathan Brooks, the rest of this season, I just don't know why they would bother. You don't want him to screw up that knee, whereas that was a brutal knee injury. Don't mess with it. And then next year, I mean, this is going to be a Monty Jameer Gibbs type situation, in my opinion. Canales is a good enough coach. I think he'll figure it out here.
I agree.
Vince needs to know PPR home league, sit one, Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, or Adam Thielen.
I love Thielen. I loved, what he had last week. I gave that stat 9-21. There's no way in a big game I'm sitting Tyreek and Kupp for Adam Thielen. I can't do it.
No, I liked what he did last week. This is a tougher matchup there against Philly. Philly's one of the best teams in the NFC, so I don't expect much from Carolina at all. The Frogs, he's got to quit. This is just for you, Keith. Would you start Levis over Stafford?
I will. Let me put it this way. In a vacuum, yes, because I think it's a really tough matchup for the Rams. However, and this is where I always tell people, trust your gut. If you think it's a game where the Rams are going to get beat and going to be down and have issues with Buffalo, I would start Stafford over Levis, because he's going to be in garbage time potentially early in the second half. And we know with those receivers and everything, that's a really good news for Stafford. But I feel more confident about Levis scoring 15 or more points than I do Stafford.
Yep, the same. RCA, he's got another one for us here. Full PPR, play one this week. Marvin Harrison, Jacoby Myers, or Calvin Ridley. He's got Kyler Murray starting.
I'm trying to remember. Does Seattle run? They run a good bit of man, right? Because
they run a lot of man, yes.
So I would, if you're just playing one, I can't sit Jacoby Myers. There's so many stats out there that versus blitz. His target rate, fantasy points, all that stuff goes up. There is no team that blitzes more in the NFL than Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ironically, I like all three of these wide receivers. I would rank them, though, unfortunately, Myers, Ridley, Harrison, because of the matchups. And what a roster that you only need one of those wide receivers to start, bro.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's Myers, Ridley, Harrison. Harrison probably has the highest boom potential of these three, but Myers, for me, is absolutely the safest with Hayden O'Connell. We got Nito Pena. This is full PPR. Deebo Samuel or Westbrook Akine.
I can't sit Westbrook Akine right now for somebody like Deebo, who has just been a non-factor. Is there the chance that they finally let him run the ball, right? Like now with Mason and CMC? That's the one thing that's intriguing. But Westbrook Akine has scored 7 of the last 8 games. I know it's only on 20 receptions, so it's literally boom or bust potential. But how many boom games does Deebo have, right? One. I can't set Westbrook Akine when he's playing Jacksonville, who allows the most passing yards, the most yardage to receivers, the most big plays. I think it's the most touchdowns. They are literally the worst pass defense in the NFL.
Nick Westbrook Akine, over his last 8 games, has 8 touchdown catches. Unreal. How the hell do you sit that? You can't sit him. They're just feeding him.
16 passing touchdowns on the season. How is that possible, right? They have 16 on the season, and the dude has 8. What did you say in his last 8 games or 7 or whatever? That's ridiculous.
Yes. And that's 2 last week. He's a master at beating zone coverage, and they get a lot of zone coverage. So, oh boy. Yeah, Westbrook Akine, just keep starting him until you can't start him anymore. The Smitty wants to know here. They've got to pick one: Cincinnati, LA Chargers, Arizona, or San Francisco defense to start this week. I'm going to say Arizona.
I agree. We saw just a few weeks ago, they did a great job versus Seattle. Geno is not the same QB if you can get pressure, which they've been doing a great job of getting. I have never been more wrong. Like I said, Arizona was going to be one of the worst defenses in the NFL at the beginning of this year. They have become one of the best in the NFL. And that was by PFF. PFF told me that their linebackers, their secondary, their defense were all ranked 30th or worst. Not a great look, PFF.
I mean, I have some thoughts. Yeah. I have some thoughts on that, but I'll keep them to myself. I did use them heavily for my offensive line rankings once upon a time. Half PPR. This is from the Venice Beach Sports Network. Half PPR, Garendo or a banged up Kenneth Walker?
I can't trust Kenneth Walker right now. Garindo, this is the 1 week that I know he's going to get a lion's share of the carries because they brought in the guy from the Jets. Patrick Taylor's been called up. We've seen with Jordan Mason when he's been the Niners or somebody, they want to give the rock to one guy. So you're going to get Garindo, versus not a great rush defense. Like that is how you get at Chicago is by running on their season is on the line. I think they're going to lean on that. I don't even think it's close. Like the only thing that would potentially, like this is a full PPR, maybe I would go Walker because, of his pass catching upside to where we don't know a Garindo, but it's basically a rushing deal. Give me Garindo all day.
Look, last week against the Jets, Kenneth Walker was supposedly healthy. He had 16 carries for 49. Charbonnet had 4 for 28. He got the red zone carries. He had the touchdown. Charbonnet also had 2 targets for 13 yards to Kenneth Walker's 2 targets for -3.
So you think he's hurt, right? Is what you're saying? It's almost
he's hurt.
He was so good early this season.
Yeah, he's not. It's the same way I felt about Travis Etienne. Still do feel about Travis Etienne. He's not a bad back. He didn't just magically become inefficient. He's just hurt. It happens, and sometimes this stuff lingers. This is a brutal sport. You get dinged up every week. Vince wants to say thank you. I have to run. My son is trying to tackle a bin chicken. All right. That sounds like fun to me. Nino Pena also must win week. Caleb, Jameis, or Tua. I'm going Tua.
This is the one person that Tua is probably like 5th or 6th for me in QBs this week. Just, no price, no nothing. Caleb Williams is the guy for me. Like if you look since the change of Thomas Brown, he is 3rd in points per game the last 3 weeks. The biggest reason and why I like Caleb over Tua. 140 rushing yards in the last 3 games. So you're basically getting 5 points every week from him just on the ground now again. And plus they have condensed that offense to where it's just their pass catchers. Again, the 49ers have all of 3 defenders from their Super Bowl team with all the injuries, and Fred Warner is out there running around with a dislocated ankle. So really it's 2.5. I love Caleb this week. I think the Bears offense is going to put on a show. They want to get Thomas Brown that job too. They really like him.
Yeah. All right. I'm fine with Caleb. It's mostly a toss-up for me. All right. We're going to get to our last question here, folks. Yeah. And we do have to get going here. It is Friday. We got things to do. It's Christmas season. Juan Pena Jr. wants to know here, who for my wide receiver 2 and running back 2 plus a flex? So pick a wide receiver, pick a running back, pick a flex. He's got Justin Jefferson as his wide receiver 1, Kyron Williams, wide receiver 2. So here's his bench. He's got Juwan Jennings, Xavier Worthy, Jacoby Myers, Darnell Mooney, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Breece Hall. I'm going to say right off the bat, I want Westbrook-Akine, and I want Mooney. And then I think I would go Charbonnet for my running back for the red zone work.
Yeah, so the wide receiver would be for me is definitely Jacoby Myers that I want the most. Again, just those blitz numbers. I think the Raiders are going to be down versus Tampa, throwing a lot. And then the Mooney Westbrook for me is really close. Like I think if you're looking for volume, it's going to slightly be Mooney, but Westbrook again 7 out of 8. It's hard to sit a guy that's done that when they're playing arguably the worst pass defense in the NFL. As for the running back, I think I'll lean with you. I mean, this is such a big game for Seattle, and with what Kenneth Walker's been doing, and what you just said that Charbonnet was more effective. He got the red zone touch. I would lean toward him. I would look though out there, like if DeAndre Swift is ruled out, Roschon Johnson's been rolled out. Travis Homer may be available in your league. Maybe Brett, there may be other, backs that could get some touches because I don't love any of those guys because of the uncertainty, obviously with kind of the pecking order and what their usage is going to be.
If DeAndre Swift is ruled out, I quit. I'm just saying that right now. I can't afford to lose another damn.
It's another reason why I like Caleb this week is because the Bears, all their
they're going to have to throw.
Yeah, and it makes that usually also means the QB's going to have to run a little bit more. So, that just ups his, floor a little bit.
I've only got one share of Caleb Williams. He was just as cost prohibitive for me in Dynasty. It's pretty set at quarterback, but I'm glad that I get to start him. I didn't get any of them in redraft.
I think that that's going to end up being a very good share eventually because I just think he got the worst possible situation. It was almost like they tried to do everything right, but the coaching was almost very similar to what Bryce went through. It was just awful. And now you see immediately with a competent play caller in Thomas Brown, he's looked
so much better.
Yep, he's getting rid of the ball quickly. Yeah. And that's why it's like I blame the coach. I don't blame the player.
Yeah.
When you make a change of coach and everything changes immediately.
Well, I wish Josh Rosen had gotten the same
Come here.
chance. Would have been awesome, but he didn't. But you know what? You do get a chance. And if you missed us here, if you did not get your questions in, if you're listening to the audio version, watching us later on YouTube, coming up on Sunday, we have our last minute AMA, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard on Reddit, r/fantasy football. 3.6 million people over on that crazy channel. So drop your questions in, guys, and we will get to them on Sunday right up until kickoff. And then, oh, what's up, buddy?
So this is Bryant. He's ready to tear everything up. He said, "Don't touch me." Are you going to start?
That's amazing.
He's like, "Oh, computer, I know how to work this thing."
Yeah. These shows are a family affair, man. It's just the
And
way
say
to
there's
go.
Lily.
Oh, Brian.
Hey,
I love it.
I was just teaching him how to Ric Flair chop and go woo, and then he's going to do that to me. They're the best, man. They really are.
Oh, man. That's awesome. It's a great way to end the week.
You are funny, man.
Oh, man. That's awesome. All right, Keith, we got to get you out of here. I need to get me out of here. Just real quick before we go, guys. Coming up next week, we've got a full slate of shows, starting with the Waiver Wire show on Tuesday, Nate and Herms on Wednesday, the Optimist podcast Thursday, and Keith and I will be back for Q&A live on Friday next week. All right, everyone. We wish you the best of luck this week. Go out there and win those fantasy championships, get into the playoffs, and we will see you next week. For Keith Flemming, I am Nate Polvogt. Adios, folks.